We begin a new Perek today, the third Perek of Masechta Eiruvin. Zok the Mishnah. Bakoil, ma'arvin, u'mishtatven, you could use any different kind of foods for an Eiruv, and as Rashi says, we're talking here about an Eiruv Chatzeris or an Eiruv Tchumen. And mishtatven is the shittuf that's made for a mavoi. Actually, the Mefarshim discuss that l'chayre, most of this Perek is going to talk about the kind of food that can be used for an Eiruv Tchumen, not Eiruv Chatzeris. It's actually a question why Rashi even includes Eiruv Chatzeris here. But that's what Rashi says. So you can use all kinds of foods for the Eiruv. Chutz min hamayim u'min hamelach, besides water or salt. Another halacha where you find a similar thing, va'koil nikach bekesef meiser. You're allowed to use the money of the meiser, so you have the produce of meiser, and you can't carry it to Yerushalayim. So you redeem that produce for money, and you're carrying the money to Eretz Yisrael, to Yerushalayim actually that is. And then in Yerushalayim, you're buying food with that money and eating it in Yerushalayim. So you could buy any food with this money. Chutz min hamayim u'min hamelach. Also besides water and salt. And we'll see in the Gemara various opinions and drashas of where we learn out the limitations regarding what you could buy with the money of Meiser. A person that makes a neder not to eat mazain, food that nourishes, mutter b'mayim u'b'melach. B'melach u'b'mayim, that is. He's allowed to eat salt or water because they don't nourish the person. And it's the same reason for the Eiruvin that we spoke about before, that the Eiruvin has to be something that gives a person nourishment. Then, where you put your food that gives you nourishment, that's considered to be your dwelling. And that's why you can walk from that place another 2,000 amas. Or therefore it's considered to be that you're living there for Eiruv Chatzeris. But if it doesn't give any nourishment, then it doesn't accomplish that. Ma'arvin le-nazir b'yayin. A nazir could use wine for his Eiruv, even though he can't drink the wine. But because others could drink it, it's considered to be food or wine or drink that is good for the Eiruv. Well, Yisrael b'truma. And if Yisrael, which is not allowed to eat truma, can eat truma, could place truma as well for his Eiruv. Sumcha seimer. Sumcha says b'chulin. Sumcha says no, for a Yisrael it has to be chulin. But Sumcha does not seem to be arguing about the case of a nazir, and the Gemara will explain this. Koyin, bebeis hapras, for a koyin, you can put the food of his Eiruv Tchumen even in a beis hapras. A beis hapras is an area where there was a caver, and it was plowed over, and there could be remnants of bones from the mace in the field, and therefore there's a suffix wherever you go, so there's a gzeirim with the Rabbanon, that a koyin should not enter into that area. But Chachamim allowed for an Eiruv that a person should be able to go there to use the place for an Eiruv. Rabbi Yehuda says even more, you can put for a koyin the food for his Eiruv Tchumen even between kvarim. Why? Because he can get into a box or something that's going to create a mechitza, a partition, and he will be able to go in that area in this box. So therefore it's not an issue even if it's in a beis hakvaris. Sagt the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, ein lemeidin min haklolus. We don't learn out from a Mishnah that uses the term klal, that this is a rule, that this is the rule with no exception. We don't say that. Even a Mishnah where it says chutz, so if it's specifying chutz these cases, you would think that the Mishnah is clearly telling you it's only chutz these cases and not others. But even when the Mishnah gives a klal and it says chutz, there could be other exceptions. We can't learn out from this. No, that was a statement that Rabbi Yochanan said. So now the Gemara analyzes the wording here. Since Rabbi Yochanan here is saying even when a Mishnah uses the term chutz, the klal, the lav hachakoi, I can see that what Rabbi Yochanan said does not refer to our Mishnah. In our Mishnah it says chutz. If Rabbi Yochanan was talking about our Mishnah, then he would have said ein lemeidim min haklolus b'makim shenema b'chutz. This Mishnah here, where it says chutz, why does he add afilu? In other words, Rabbi Yochanan was talking about a Mishnah where it does not say chutz. And he's telling you that this concept, that ein lemeidim min haklolus, would be true even if the Mishnah would say chutz. So he's not going in our Mishnah where it actually says chutz. So, where did Rabbi Yochanan say this? Miklal de lav hachakoi. Hey chakoi. So on what Mishnah did Rabbi Yochanan say this statement? It's like the Gemara Hasam Koi, it goes on a Mishnah in Masechta Kedushin. It says there, Kol mitzvahs aseisha azman grama, any mitzvah that's zman grama, anoshim chayavim v'noshim pturais. The women are potter. If it's a mitzvah that doesn't have a specific time, echad noshim, ve'echad an noshim chayavim. Men and women are chayav equally. That's the Mishnah. So now the question is, a klalahu? Is this a klal without any exception? The chol mitzvah says as mangrama noshim peturais, that if it's mangrama, women are potter. Had a mitzvah simcha, the mitzvah of simchas yamtiv, hakel, mitzvah says as mangrama, they're both mitzvahs that have a specific time, v'noshim chayavis, and both of them the noshim are chayav. And the Gemara asks the same thing regarding the other statement of the Mishnah. B'chol mitzvah say shaloy az mangrama. Noshim chayava is if it's a mitzvah that's not connected to one time. The noshim are obligated. Is this true? Harei Talmud. Okay. Second, let me go back a second. I believe I missed something over here. So when it says that mitzvah say shazman grama noshim peturais, so harei matzah. There's matzah, simcha, and hakel. So there's matzah as well. Matzah, women are chayiv to eat matzah. Sorry. So how could you say this klal without an exception? And the same thing regarding the statement mitzvah sasei shaloyaz man grama noshim chayavois harei talmud Torah piri v'ribya pidyon haben. We have three mitzvahs: learning Torah, having children, and the mitzvah pidyon haben. The mitzvah sasei shaloyaz man grama. This is a mitzvah that's not in a specific time. V'noshim pturais, and there are limudim that teach us that noshim are potter. So how could the Mishnah say a klal? So on this, Elam Rav Yechanan, on this Rav Yechanan said, Ein lemeidin min haklalos. You can't learn out from the Mishnah that says a klal. Filish b'makom shenever b'chutz. And that would even be true if the Mishnah says a chutz. It could be that there are more exceptions that the Mishnah didn't mention. Afanan nami tanina, says the Gemara. We have another case as well where we could see where the Mishnah says chutz, but there are more exceptions. Even the Mishnah is giving a klal with a chutz, and there could be more exceptions. And the Mishnah is as follows: Oid klal echad amru. There's a klal that said, and this Mishnah talks about the tumah of azav. Kol shenisa al gabi azav tameh. Anything that's being carried on top of azav, anything that's being held or carried on top of azav, is tameh. The chol she'azav nisa alav. Anything that's carrying the zav on it is going to be toir. Chutz min aroi lemishkav u'meishav. Unless you're sitting or lying on something which is designated for that. It's made for lying or sitting on it. So then it's going to be tameh. V'ha'adam. And also a person that's carrying the zav will also become tameh. That's the Mishnah. Frek the Gemara v'su leke. Is there no other exceptions? V'ha'ikim merkav. There's a case where you're riding on something and that's also tameh. So how could it say only moishav and mishkav? There's also merkav. So the Gemara says, wait a minute. Hi merkav hechidami. What case are you talking about when a person is riding on something? Riding on a horse, let's say. Idi Yosef aleh, if he's sitting on the donkey or on the horse. So Hainu Moishav, that's already included in Moishav. That's his seat where he's sitting, and we already said that that's Tomei. So the Gemara says, Anan Hachi Kamrinan. This is the question over here, that it should have added Merkav. Why? Ha'ike Gaba de Uchve, there is a Gaba de Uchve, when you sit on a saddle, besides the saddle that you're sitting on, there's also sort of a piece of wood or whatever it is that sticks out in the front to hold on to it while you're riding. So it's this piece that you're holding on to enable you to ride, which is an accessory for riding. That's a separate thing that's not included, not in Moishav and not in Mishkav, and that's our question, that it should have said Merkav separately. The Tanya, Ha'ukav Tamei, the ukav, the saddle, is tamei moishav. V'hatofos, because you're sitting on the saddle. V'hatofos, and then what you hold on to in the front of the saddle is also tamei merkav. It's tamei because that's an accessory for you riding on it. So the Mishnah missed something. Elo shmamina. From here as well I see ein lemeidim min haklalos. You can't learn out from a case where a Mishnah gives a klal. Even in a Mishnah where it clearly uses the term chutz, there could be more exceptions. I'll bring you another case. So right over here, the Mishnah says that you can make an eirov or a shittov with any foods besides water or salt. This is the only exception. All other foods are accepted. There are mushrooms or truffles that is also not considered to be a food that nourishes, and it's also an exception. And the Mishnah didn't mention that. Elo shmami no. From here I see ein lemeidim min haklalos. You can't learn out from a Mishnah when it gives a klal. Va'afilu b'makom shenama by chutz. Even if it uses the term chutz, there could be more exceptions. In other words, the point here is that Tana of the Mishnah is giving you a certain klal, and it's giving you a certain exception, which gives you the rule. Once you have the rule and you see the exception to the rule, you can then deduce from that what the rule will apply, how the rule will apply in other cases, and what other exceptions there may be. But not necessarily is the Tana giving you all of the exceptions. There could be more exceptions. Sagt die Gemara weiter, it said in our Mishnah, Koil nikach bekesef meiser, you can buy everything with money of meiser to eat in Yerushalayim besides mayim and melach. Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yosi bar Chanina. So these two amiroim. Chad, so the following statement that we're about to say, Chad masnia eruv. One of them taught this regarding an eruv, regarding food used for an eruv. The Chad masnia meiser. And one of them taught this about the food needed, or the food that you're buying with the money of meiser. Chad masnia eruv. One learned regarding eruv. Loi shanu ella mayim b'fnei atzmai umelach b'fnei atzmai. This that you can't use water or salt for an eruv is only if you're using it each separately. The ein ma'arvin, so then you can't use it. Avol b'mayim umelach ma'arvin. If you mix salt with the water, so then you could use it. So he said this regarding an eruv. Chad masni a meiser. Another opinion is that this was said regarding meiser. When are we saying that you can't use water, you can't buy water or salt with the money of meiser? That's if they're separate. You can't buy them. If it's salt in the water, salt water, then niknen bekesef meiser. You could buy it with kesef meiser. There's actually a machlekes rishonim about this. Some say that what the Gemara means to say is, if you have just water, no salt available at all, or only salt, no water at all, that's when it's a problem. But if you have salt and water, even if you have them side by side on the table, or you put them there separately, for the eruv or for the meiser, you buy salt and water separately, that's okay. Others say no, that it means that you mix it, you make it salt water. That's what the Gemara here is saying, that it'll be okay. So now the Gemara explains, Man de masnia meiser, the one that says regarding meiser, that if you mix the salt in the water that it's okay, koshkin eruv. Definitely it'll work for eruv, that it's considered to be a food which nourishes, and it's going to work for eruv. Man de masnia eruv, the one that says this regarding eruv, that if you mix it, it's fine. Avala meiser, loy. But for meiser, this is not going to work. My taime, peire beina. Regarding meiser, there has to be a peire. There has to be produce. We'll see soon in the Gemara Namid Beis exactly what the criteria is for what you're allowed to buy from kesef meiser. But just mixing salt and water will not be enough. When Rabbi Yitzchak came, masnia meiser, he said this regarding meiser, that you could buy salt water with the money of meiser. Fragt the Gemara, meisvei. Hey, Rabbi Yehuda ben Godish lefnei Rabbi Eliezer shel beis Abba. So Rabbi Yehuda ben Godish said in the front of Rabbi Eliezer that in my father's house, hoyu loikchen tzir bekesef meiser. They would buy fish brine with the money of meiser. Possibly, you only heard this in a case where there's actually parts of the fish itself that are mixed into the brine, but just the brine itself would not be allowed. It has to be actual fish inside. The Gemara explains what the question is. Even if Rabbi Yehuda ben Godish says, what are you allowed to buy with the money of the meiser? Tzir, fish brine. The shumne de peirehi. It's fats of produce, fats of the fish, which is peira, as we'll see soon in the Gemara. Avol mayim umelach, but when it comes to salt water, even Rabbi Yehuda ben Godish, that was makel to allow brine, and you don't have to have parts of the fish itself, but water and salt, that he never said. Amar Rav Yosef, so Rav Yosef answers, Lo nitzrucha elo shenosan letoichan shemen. This that Rabbi Yitzchak said, that salt water is allowed, we're talking about salt water that you have oil in it. You mixed in oil or from the fish as well. So therefore it's allowed. But now, plain salt water would cannot be allowed. Amalei Abaye, so Abaye said, if so, v'tepikle mishum shemen. So then the reason why you're allowed to buy this salt water that has oil from the fish in it is not because of the salt in the water, it's because of the oil. So why is he saying that that you're allowed to buy salt and water? You're buying it for the oil that's in it. That's what's allowed. And says the Gemara, Loitzricha shenosan dmei mayim umelach ba'avlo. The case over here is he's redeeming the money of the meiser and he's paying for the oil, but he's paying an extra premium for the oil because it's going to include in it also the water and the salt. So even though the water and the salt alone, you're not allowed to buy with the money of the meiser, but you're allowed to pay extra for the oil so that the seller includes in the package also water and salt. So that's allowed, and that's what Rabbi Yitzchak was saying. Havlo, when you include it together in the price of when you buy the oil. Are you allowed to do this? There's a certain requirement what you're allowed to buy with money of meiser, and you pay extra and you include other things as well. Are you allowed to do such a thing? So the Gemara says, yes, you're allowed. So this is a proof to the fact that you're allowed. So there's a pasuk where it says what you are going to redeem with your money of the meiser. So it says, "V'nesata kesef b'chola sheta'ava nafshecha ba'bokar b'tzoim b'yayim b'sheichar." So you can buy bokar, oxen, or sheep, or wine, or sheichar, beer, or any strong drink. So the Gemara now is going to explain why is the pasuk spelling out all of these details. It already says b'chola sheta'ava nafshecha. What do we learn out from all of these details that the Torah says you could buy with the money of your meiser? Ba'bokar. When the Torah writes bokar, melamed shaloichim bakar al gav oirei. That when you're paying with the money of the meiser for the oxen, you can pay extra and include in it also the hide of the animal, even though that's not edible at all, but you include it together. So here, this is the brisa where we see this concept that you could be mavliya. You could include it in the price of what you're buying for meiser. This hide that you're including is not going to be meiser. It's not going to have the kedusha of meiser, but you're including it in the price of meiser, and you're not paying for the bakar, for the meat of the animal. You're just paying an extra price, and you're including it also the oil of the animal. Ubatzayin, what the tzayin comes to teach you, melamed shaloichin tzayin al gav gizasa, that you're paying for the tzayin, for the sheep, and you're paying extra to include in it also the fleece. Ubayayin, the wine, melamed shaloichin yayin al gav kankana. You buy the wine together with the jug, and you pay extra for the jug. Uba sheichar, the sheikh of beer or a drink. Malamed shaloichin temed. You can buy the grape juice or med mishahechmitz once it ferments. And even though it's basically water, right? It's the grapes is the meiser that you're buying with the meiser money the grapes, but most of it is really water, and it's just the acidity of the grapes that goes into the water and it ferments. So even though it's mostly water, you could include it in the price of the money of the meiser. That's what we learn out of here. So this is the source where we see that you can do this. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabbi Yochanan now says, "Man de metargem li babakar." Whoever will explain me why it's necessary to have this word babakar. So before in the Brisa we said babakar comes to teach me that you could include the hide of the animal together in the price. Whoever will explain me why that is needed. So then, what does Rabbi Yochanan say? My vilna aliba de ben bagbag, according to ben bagbag, as it said in the Brisa here, my vilna mane abasreila beimasusa. I will help him, I will serve him, and bring his clothing after him to the bathhouse. In other words, he says, I have no idea what the pshat and what ben bagbag is saying, and the Gemara will soon explain what's the difficulty that he had. Whoever could explain this to me, he'll be my teacher. I'll serve him. So now the Gemara will explain what's the problem that Rabbi Yochanan had with the word babakar. This is not needed. My time so why are they all needed? Levar mi babakar de loy tzarech. Besides babakar, that according to Rabbi Yochanan, he doesn't see why the drasha of babakar would be needed. So the Gemara now goes through all of them to explain why are they all necessary. Basically, from all of these different words, we learned out the same point. That you could be mavliya, you could include in the price that you're buying for the kesef meiser something else as well. So why do we need all of them? There's going to be a chiddush in each one of these cases. There has to be. So the Gemara explains. If the Torah would only write the case of bakar, that you could include the hide of the animal, by the bakar you can buy it with the money of the meiser together with the hide of the animal. The hide of the animal is part of its body. So therefore that could be included. Avol tzayin al gav gizasa, buying the sheep together with the fleece, the lav gufayu. It's not part of the body. You can cut it off even while it's alive. So emaloi, maybe that can't be included in the money of the maisa that you buy. Because of rachmana b'tzayin, if we would say that by the tzayin you could include the fleece, agav gizasa hava amine mishum de mechubaba, because the fleece is connected to the body of the animal. But avoyayin al gabe kankanoi, the wine together with the jug, with the barrel, so it's two separate things. So over here I would think maybe you can't pay extra for the barrel. Himaloi. If the Torah would say regarding wine that you're including extra, you're paying extra for the barrel as well. This is how you preserve the wine. It's the only way to preserve it. So therefore it could be included in the price of the money of the meiser. But when you have water that you put the grapes in it, and what does it do? It ferments. So what happens? The kiyua ba'almu. What's really happening here? The grapes are just adding an acidity to the water, but it's really mostly water. The whole base over here is water. In such a case, I would say, since water you can't buy with the money of the maisa, so in such a case you can't pay for these grapes and include the water, which is the main thing. Therefore, the Torah says, even in such a case, you could pay extra for the water as well. So this is looking at the pasuk if you start from the beginning. If the Torah would only write bakar, it wouldn't be enough. I need sign. If the Torah would write sign, that's not enough. I need to have yayin. And then from yayin to sheikhar. Now the Gemara says, wait a minute. Let's start from the other way around. Let's start from the bottom. Let the Torah only write sheikhar, and I wouldn't need any of the rest. So the Gemara will now make the tzrichas starting from the bottom up. Sagt the Gemara weiter. Now, if the Torah would only write the case of sheikhar, that when you put the water and the grapes together and it ferments, that then you could include it in the price for buying for the ma'aser sheni, havamina, I would say, my sheikhar, you know what sheikhar is? Sheikhar does not refer to water with the grapes that ferments, devela ki'ilis. It refers to a certain kind of a date that's very juicy, the peidahu. It's like it's a juicy and it's has a sharp drink, a sharp taste to it, which is really a fruit. That's what the pasuk is referring to when it says that you can buy with the money of the meiser. But the wine, to include the price of the barrel, I would say not. If the Torah would then add and say wine, I would say I would say you have to have the barrel for the wine. That's how you preserve the wine. So over there, the wine, I would say, is included in the price that you can add in the price. The sheep with the fleece, you don't need it. Doesn't need the fleece on the animal, so therefore maybe you can't include that in the price when you're buying money with money of meiser. I would say you can't. So therefore the Torah says, tzayin, to tell me that even the fleece could also be included in the price. So now the question becomes, if you're going from the bottom of the pasuk, from the end of the pasuk, from sheikhar to yayin to tzayin, and then you come to bakar, babakar lamali. Why do you have to teach me about bakar? It's a kal v'chomer. If you could include in the price the fleece, which is not part of the body of the animal as much as the hide is, so for sure the hide could be included in the price. It's part of the body of the animal. So what do we need babakar for? Now if you're going to answer, if the Torah would not write babakar, hava minute tzayin al gavaira. Maybe I would say when the Torah wrote sheep, tzayin, what is it coming to tell me? That you could include the hide in the price. Maybe it's not referring to the fleece. We don't have bakar. We don't have a pasuk that teaches me that you could include the hide in the price. So maybe that's what tzayin is teaching me, that you can include the hide in the price. Agav gizasa loy, and I would say that the fleece cannot be included in the price. So therefore, katsav rachmana babakar lasuya oirei. And so therefore the Torah has to write babakar to include also the hide of the animal. That's what we learn out from babakar. So now iyatu late sign. So now tzayin is an extra drasha. I already know that the hide could be included. Lasuya gizasa. And therefore, I would now know that tzayin comes to say that even the fleece could also be included. So, l'chayre, we do have a pshat why the Torah has to write bakar and tzayin. In other words, the Torah is writing the word bakar to clarify what the drasha from tzayin is. When I see the word tzayin, an animal, that you buy an animal with money of meiser, that could either come to teach me to include even the fleece, Or it could either come to teach me that it includes the hide of the animal. If it would not write babakar, so then I would say the smaller chiddush. I would say that it's coming to include only the hide of the animal. Once I learn out from babakar that includes the hide of the animal, so now I know that sign includes the fleece. So l'chayre, what was Rabbi Yechanan's question? Why is bakar extra? So the Gemara says no. It's still there's a question here because even if the Torah would have not written bakar, loy hava minet sign al gav oire in al gav gizasaloi. I would have never said that when the Torah writes sign a sheep, it's only coming to add the hide and not the fleece. The im came because if that's the only intention of the Torah, the hide and not the fleece, so lichtiv rachmana bakar. Let the Torah write bakar. Bakar has the hide. There is no fleece. The memele yatilet sign, and there's no reason to write sign. Why is the Torah using an example of an animal that has fleece? It should have, if the miyut is only or the drasha that is, if the drasha is only there to teach me b'nigayah to the hide of the animal, it should have written bakar. So v'kivin the kasav rachmanet sign stafil al gav gizasa. So if the Torah chooses from all animals specifically a sheep, it's obviously coming to tell me that when you buy with money of Meiser, you can buy even and pay and include in the price even the fleece. That's what you learn out from Tzayin already. You don't need bakar to show me that. By the very fact that the Torah chose the Tzayin as an example of what you could buy with Meiser, and Tzayin has fleece, so then I know that already. So if so, conclusion here is, our question is, ba bakar lamali. So if so, why does the Torah have to write that you can buy with the money of the Meiser bakar? If you can buy the sheep together with the fleece with the money of the meiser, bakar al gav oiroi, the oxen together with the hide of the animal, which is part of the body, mibaya, is that needed to tell me? For sure you're allowed to buy it with the money of the meiser. So haino the ka'amar Rav Yechanan. So this is what Rav Yechanan said.